Now we move on to Phase 2. Here we look at all the characters from Justice League and build upon that while also building the world. First things first, we have Martian Manhunter. It might be a bit of a strange decision to have Martian Manhunter be the first movie of Phase 2, but hear me out. In the DCEU, we have already gotten the Trinity extensively. Superman has been featured 4 times, Batman twice, and Wonder Woman twice, so we don't need to immediately see them for a while. Then we have The Flash, and despite not being the same character, at this point in time, we have had 4 seasons of a TV show with him, so we don't really need to see him either. That leaves Martian Manhunter and Aquaman. Due to the fact that Martian Manhunter is even less respected than Aquaman despite being a fantastic character, we get him first. Yeah, we've gotten him on Smallville and Supergirl, but only as supporting characters and with not a lot of depth, and pretty terrible CGI for the latter. Anyway, the plot involves John Jones as a detective for the Middleton Police Department hunting a brutal serial killer. At the same time, Martian Manhunter believes that there is an alien threat in Middleton and plans to uncover more about them before anything bad happens. Then he soon realizes that the person he's hunting as John and as Martian Manhunter is one and the same, and might be bigger than he actually realized. So, with this plotline, I wanted it to be a science fiction noir thriller. John Jones wouldn't be showcased a lot, and it would mostly focus on Martian Manhunter, the events after Justice League, who he is, and what his place on Earth is. Also, similar to the plan in Justice League Mortal, Martian Manhunter will be practical with prosthetics and makeup. If there would be anyone to direct and write, it would be James Mangold. He did such a great job with Logan and the inner turmoil of the character. I thought he would be an amazing fit for Martian Manhunter. With that, Aquaman is next. It would pretty much be the movie we got with some tweaks here and there, mainly with casting. Arthur's father would be recast due to the fact that Aquaman is no longer a darker Polynesian man, and Amber Heard would be recast for obvious reasons. But for the most part, it pretty much stays the same. I also think Steppenwolf is mentioned in Aquaman, and you can get rid of that too. And maybe some tweaks with plot here and there, but overall, pretty much the same movie. James Wan and Will Bill would stay on to direct and write respectively. Next up is Teen Titans. Another bigger change. In this world, there is going to be a Titans show, but it's not Titans. It'll be Teen Titans and be connected to the DCEU. Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing, and Stargirl are still their own things, but Titans changes to Teen Titans and won't resemble the show, at all. The first season will be the formation of the Titans, and part of it will take place before the events of Man of Steel. It has Dick leaving Batman's side as Robin and becoming Nightwing. Then, many years later, forming the Marv Wolfman and George Perez Teen Titans, aka the more classic team everyone knows. We have Nightwing, Beast Boy, Cyborg, Starfire, and Raven, similar to the cartoon show. The reason I don't really have any of their sidekicks is because they haven't really been established yet in this continuity. However, to amend that Wonder Girl and Kid Flash aren't in the lineup, I'm going to have Omen instead of Wonder Girl, and Jesse Quick instead of Kid Flash. With Jesse, we have a speedster and a connection to the Golden Age heroes with Johnny Quick and Liberty Bell. Then with Omen, we have a connection to Wonder Girl as she is friends with her in the comics and isn't a super powerful member, but powerful enough. So the first season would start with their formation and the villain being Deathstroke. They form and really become a team by the end of the season. Then it time skips to after the events of Justice League and the rest of the show picks up from there. The rest of the villains would be Hive in Season 2, Brother Blood in Season 3, and Trigon in Season 4. The show ends on an open-ended ending, where it's not a total cliffhanger, but it doesn't, kill everyone. I think a great pair of showrunners to work on this would be the Duffer Brothers. They work with kids well, and also dealing with those types of relationships, as well as more adult themes without being, edgy. Next up is Shazam. Similar to Aquaman, it's pretty much the same movie, but it doesn't even really have to be tweaked. I did consider having only Mary Bromfield and Freddie Freeman as his family, and changing a bunch of the plot, but the original film is so goddamn great that I decided not to mess with it. David F. Sandberg and Henry Gayden would also stay on. So, yeah, moving on. Next up is The Flash. Now we're getting into major differences again. Much like the rest of the solo films, this takes place after the events of Justice League. It follows Barry Allen fighting small petty crime in Central City, but strange things begin to happen when a person who looks exactly like Barry Allen starts to wreak havoc in Central City, and the Flash is the only one who can stop him. So this may seem pretty obvious, but the villain I'm using is Cobalt Blue, mainly because he hasn't and probably will never be used on the show. He was in a couple issues in the late 90s, fought Barry once in a flashback issue, and fought Wally once or twice, and that's it. I think there's a lot of potential for this character. The backstory is interesting, the idea surrounding him is intriguing, the powers are really cool, and overall, I think it would be a good foil for Barry in his first outing. Plus, we would also have Iris West, Daryl Fry, Ira West, Patty Spivot, and Henry Allen. I'm also changing things up a bit by having Nora Allen as well. It wasn't until 2009 that Nora dying became a thing, so to differentiate it from the show and to offer something different, I'm keeping her alive. Director and writer would of course be Edgar fucking Wright, because he would be absolutely goddamn perfect for a Flash movie. Next is another major difference with Luther. I think this would be an intriguing look at Lex Luther and have it sort of be an adaptation of the Brian Azzarello series of the same name, or similar name depending on what print you have. It would take themes and ideas from that series and apply it here. It would be an 8-episode miniseries chronicling his life from before the events of Man of Steel to during the events of Man of Steel 2 to after the events of Justice League. Each period would be chronicled in 3 episodes, with the exception of post-Justice League, which would be 2 episodes, and we would see everything from Lex's point of view. It would be along the lines of Joker, but instead of it being an Elseworld story with the bare themes of the character, it would be part of the main movie continuity and would offer something very different in terms of tone and ideas. The showrunner/director of the series would be Richard Price. I think he would do a very good job with a raw character drama like this. Next up is The Batman. So now we get to our quote-unquote present day, pretty much, with The Batman. So, what version will I be following? Affleck's or Reeves's version? Well, neither. I'm sure Affleck's would have been great and Reeves's will be awesome, but I wanted to do my own version. It would pretty much be a detective story with the Riddler. Plain and simple. There could possibly be another appearance of a Batman villain, but I would want it to be minor. Maybe a henchman to Riddler, or it could be sort of a small mission before the main mission. I think the only way you could make a perfect Batman film nowadays would be David Fincher directing and James Vanderbilt writing, mainly because he wrote Zodiac, which was a mystery thriller, and I think that would apply very well here. Next is Wonder Woman. Similar to Aquaman and Shazam, this would pretty much be the same movie with some tweaks. Most of it would pretty much be the same, except the third act would be changed to reflect Nando v. Movie's version of the third act, as I thought his version was better. I don't hate the third act, as I have learned to appreciate it over the years, but I do think Nando's version was better. If you want more info, the video will be linked in the description. Outside of that, nothing else really changes, including director Patty Jenkins and writer Alan Heinberg, who in my world would be returning after writing Man of Steel 2. Next is another TV show with Elseworlds. Here's a big one. This will be an anthology series of various Elseworld stories, plain and simple. It could be straight up adaptations of them like Thrill Killer, The Nail, Red Sun, Last Son of Earth, Gotham Noir, Speed and Bullets, and various others. Or it could be a story written by a veteran comic book fan that they've had on the back burner for years and wanted to make. It could also be a chance for up-and-coming filmmakers to get their foot in the door. There's a realm of possibilities to do, so I imagine something like this could last for a long time, like 8 years. It could be a one-off episode, or even 2 to 3 episodes, or hell, even half a season. Even an entire season to tell the story. Anything you can imagine, it could work. I would imagine this would be good on something like DC Universe or HBO Max. The showrunner would be Brian Fuller, as he has an affinity for strange projects, and I think looking over something like this would be interesting. Next is Green Arrow. First movie not connected to a major franchise. Unlike the show, which was Diet Batman pretty much, this will actually feel like the character. He'll be fun, charismatic, and not totally serious all the time. I know Arrow has its fans, and that's fine, but to me, it's just not the character. So, anyway, Black Canary will be a big character returning from her appearance on Dr. Fate. The main villain would be Count Vertigo, as he wasn't really showcased in the show very well. It would pretty much be Green Arrow trying to defeat him. There could possibly be other villains like Brick or Constantine Dracon, or however you pronounce his name. Smaller ones that could possibly henchmen or smaller villains before Vertigo enters the picture. Director and co-writer would be Drew Goddard, along with Kevin Smith as co-writer. Now we move on to Justice League 2. Another big one, and this time the Justice League is fighting the Crime Syndicate. I initially had Steppenwolf be the villain for the sequel, but again, I didn't want New Gods to happen so soon. I want them to be introduced later on. However, this changes what I intended to do with the Green Lanterns. Initially, Hal and John were going to fight Steppenwolf at the end of Season 5 of Green Lantern Corps. They lose, and he heads to Earth with Hal following him despite being injured. This is what I was teasing in my initial Phase 1 video with why Green Lantern wasn't in Justice League and why Green Lantern Corps stopped this year. It was to set up Justice League 2. But I nixed that, kind of. What I am going to do instead is have Power Ring, the Earth 3 counterpart to Hal, fight Hal towards the end of Season 5 and tease Crime Syndicate. Then in the final episode, after Sinestro is defeated, Hal's ring detects Power Ring's ring in Sector 2814, and that's why he heads to Earth and is in Justice League 2. So, with this movie, with the Crime Syndicate, we introduce the idea of the multiverse, kind of. At least in the main continuity, it becomes official. The Crime Syndicate becomes bored with Earth 3, so they want to take over Earth 1. It could start off with the Crime Syndicate masquerading as the heroes, but since that was already used with Superman and Bizarro in the first one, that might not be the best idea. However, I don't want them to be one-dimensional, take-over-the-world villains, because that's so boring. Maybe we could bring up the fact that since good and evil are reversed on their Earth, there was simply no choice. This was how history went for them. It was an Earth that favored evil, and it could bring up that necessary mirror for them, show them why they do what they do, instead of just, oh hey, look, the good guys are evil now with slightly different looks. There needs to be something there other than evil because evil. There could be themes from Forever Evil presented as well, maybe having Lex Luther team up with the Justice League and that sort of thing. Matthew Vaughn would be directing and co-writing, with Zach Stentz co-writing. Then, the final project for Phase 2 is Justice Society Legacy. Here, we have the sequel to Dr. Fate, with the Justice Society forming in a 4-part miniseries. It deals with the Justice Society forming when Vandal Savage, the first metahuman and a frequent agitator of the original Justice Society, threatens the planet. So, Dr. Fate, the Spectre, Hourman, Black Canary, Wildcat, Jack Knight, Mr. Terrific, Sandman, and Silver Scarab form the second incarnation of the Justice Society to stop him. Simple stuff, but I think it could be really awesome. Lauren Schmidt would return as showrunner. Next video is casting for Phase 2.